Hey everybody, welcome back to Dental Unfiltered. I'm Matt Brown. I'm here with my normal co-host, Dr. Andrew Vallo. Hey guys, if I sound a little bit congested today, I'm fighting a cold. I apologize. I'll try to speak really clearly. Today we're going to talk about Andrew is in the middle of doing another wave of startup openings. And I think Andrew's a glutton for punishment. Seems like it was a year ago now. Me and him were at Dental Podfest together, and he was opening two startups in the same week. And I thought he was crazy. He has I think four startups that are lined up on the shelf launching. Three are launching over the next couple weeks or very soon, rapidly together. And, docs out there, a doc coming out of school works as an associate and then decides to do his first acquisition. Very intimidating. I mean, it is. It's a scary thing. Spend that much money, take a loan and buy this thing with staff and stuff you don't know. And there's another breed of docs out there, startup docs, guys that work with companies like Ideal and stuff that are out there doing startups. And they say, I'm going to go do it from scratch with no patience. And that's another level of intimidating, right? And I think about him launching two practices at the same time a year ago. And I was sitting next to him at Dental Podfest, watching his phone go off repeatedly and being like, why would you at least stagger these a couple months? Why did you do two at once in my head? And now he's doing three that are really rapidly together. So Andrew, this is a different level of stress and intimidation that you're taking on. I think a lot of stuff you're going to say could really inspire the guys, even doing the other two levels or three levels of doing this, whether it's acquisition or startup. Once you get kind of good at it, it's kind of just, what to expect, right? So the first question I want to ask you is about this, and this is kind of on the personal side, okay? Do you go to your wife and your loved ones and say, hey, during Christmas, I'm going to open 3 dental practices? And do they know it's coming? Or is it one day your wife is like, hey, I haven't seen you in 5 days, come out of your office. What's going on? Oh, I decided to open 3 dental practices. Because I know in my world, and I don't keep my wife out of things. She just doesn't get involved in the business. She doesn't ask questions. She does, but she's she knows we're working all the time, right? Me and Ryan work a lot, and our wives kind of support us and help us and enable us. But I don't think they really know the steps that are going on. But the task of 3 startups being slammed together, launched all at once. I mean, you have to be hiring 15 to 20 people or more. You're spending an enormous amount of money. The stress level is high. Was there a pre-talk, a post-talk, a surprise? Did you prep your loved ones? Didn't you? Tell me that intimate part of this, because that is the part when people think about, I'm going to do this. The first thing they think about in their head is, how is it going to affect my personal life? Yeah. So tell me how that went.
Well, guys, I guess it must be going around because I'm fighting something too. But bear with both of us today. This is going to be a fun episode. As Matt mentioned, last year I opened 2 startups 2 days apart. Well, 1 day apart. We opened one on a Monday and one on a Tuesday. This year I'm opening 3 new startups in 3 weeks. So basically, 3 weeks from the day I open the first startup, the third startup will be open. So it's going to be about 5 startups it's going to be 5 startups we've opened in just about a year here. To Matt's question about timing, why does it always seem to happen around the holidays? To make matters worse, my son's birthday is December 8th. So we've got Thanksgiving, my son's birthday, the holidays, and in the midst of all of this, opening 3 new startups. Timing does not seem ideal. Now, there, like anything else, there's usually a method behind the madness. And part of it is we're trying to be strategic with offsetting taxes. So, one of my episodes, if you haven't already listened, talks about how to legally pay zero in taxes. And as an entrepreneur, a serial entrepreneur, the easiest way to do that is to continue to open more startup businesses, because you can write off almost 100% of your start off cost against your tax burden for that year. So, when I have the meetings with my CPA team at Elliott Davis, and we talk about tax burden, we talk about what's
I use the same guys, super smart. I think they're the best in the industry.
So, basically this year, the idea was it's going to take somewhere around 2 to 3 new startups to offset tax burden. Okay, great. I'm going to open 3 new practices to make sure that I'm good. But the other thing is, obviously it takes time to find these places, to get them open. And keep in mind, guys, these are all fast startups. These are all 3 of these were the pre-existing dental space I found. 2, we did some construction on. Obviously you don't have to do the full build out construction. It saved us time, saved us money, but we did some cosmetic construction. We're doing a little bit of functional construction to increase the number of ops in the space. The third one, actually, the first one opened, which just opened earlier this week, Monday. That one we did no construction. That was the last one we found. I found that space at the beginning of October, and we opened to patients in the middle of December. So that was super fast from the time we found the space. We did purchase the existing equipment that was there, and then we bought a CBCT, upgraded some of the IT stuff, got our team in there, did a couple days of training, and started seeing patients. So, basically it's like you can only start up so many practices at one time. You can only get so much funding from the bank over a certain period. And I've built a relationship with my bank, Huntington, over the years, where they are continuing to fund, the growth of my group. But you still have to space things out a little bit. But my goal was I'm going to do what I can to make sure all of these projects finish by the end of the year. So that way I can, really maximize the tax advantages for 2024.
Back to the personal part of it. Like, when did your wife find out that you're doing this? Like, was it like she found out you talking? Like, sometimes my wife finds out about things in my business world when I'm walking through the kitchen talking on the phone to somebody, and that's how she finds out, right? Like, how did you approach, like, hey, during the holiday season, I'm gonna create the most stress we've ever had professionally ever in our marriage? Like, how did that? Just everyone thinks about that kind of stuff. Like, how did you approach that, or did you at all?
Yeah, I mean, some of it probably is just hearing me in passing conversations with, my commercial real estate broker, with attorneys. Some of it is like honestly very casual. Like I don't like build up the suspense to tell her like, oh, we're going to do another project, or I want to do another project. It's usually just like, Marshall found another space for me. I think we're going to do another practice, whatever it is. So it's pretty nonchalant. I mean, the cool thing is she has been very supportive, of the growth, and, it's which I appreciate. I mean, at the same time, like as chaotic as it makes my life, obviously it affects my whole family. So, I couldn't do this without her support. But at the same time, I think it gets old from time to time, I'm sure. I mean, honestly, guys, like it gets old for me sometimes. And I think while I'm in these periods, I think like, okay, I think I'm going to like take a breath once I get through this stretch here. But my biggest problem is I have trouble saying no to a good opportunity. And so I was just saying recently, over the last couple of years, I think I've gotten better at finding these opportunities as I've gotten better at networking, as I've built better relationships. So, as we're in the midst of this 3-week stretch, opening 3 startups, and, have a potential 4th already on the back burner, I'm getting calls about, even that next project for 2025. And if it's the right opportunity, I'm never going to just say no. I'm going to want to find out the details. I'm going to want to do my due diligence. I'm going to want to look into it. I might want to look at seeing, usually it's the lease we're negotiating, because normally I'm not acquiring. I mean, I've never acquired a true practice with patients, but normally I'm not even buying the equipment. I'm just going into a space and, doing the lease. But I might want to see, like, can I make the numbers work more in my advantage? But yeah, I mean, it is weird, Matt, for sure. I mean, it does put a strain on your personal life. It puts a strain on, you have to say no a lot. So like for me, when I do have time outside of working, I try to, devote as much of that as I can to spending time with my wife, with my son, with my close family, maybe with very close friends. But it means saying no to a lot of other social gatherings, so it's like, it's not that I don't want to go hang out with, all these people. It's not that I don't want to go do these things, but you only have so much time away from your business, especially when you're in a rapid growth phase. So you have to be very selective of how you spend that time.
Okay, so we got 4 startups in the queue, 3 opening pretty soon, right? Is that correct?
We've got the 3 that are literally opening like right now. Like as right we now. Speak, like I said, like one opened this week, one's opening next week, okay. And one's opening, within 3 weeks of that first one.
I talk to startup and acquisition docs like every day, right? So I'm trying to talk to the audience from like understanding their point of view on how they do things and kind of trying to relate to them. It's like you're a startup and acquisition doc, right? And you start this process. It's kind of like home shopping, right? In like a hot market. And you try to get a few deals to get down to one deal. Right, generally, like you'll like go like a 4 offices to acquisition to get down to 1. You seemed, the way we've been working together for the last couple of years, I've been watching these startups. your realtor calls you and says, I have space. And you say yes. And it's like, just add water, instant dental practice in a few months. I know for a fact you're not looking at multiple deals to get down to one deal. You're like getting very laser strategic scenarios. And your realtor knows, I think your realtor knows what you're looking for.
Yeah.
So I feel like one thing where you've been real efficient is, I'm going to explain how you got to this, or maybe you just did it naturally, was you're not looking at like 10 deals to get one deal. You're looking at like a 1-to-1. You're like, realtor calls you, you're by the pool one day, I got a space, you just say yes. It fit all the you have like a criteria list, I think. I don't know. And then you do the deal. So like, how are you doing that? Like, how are you like, when did you realize and know that like I can do this 1-to-1 and save all that scouting of deals and just do these 1-to-1 deals if I do it this way? Like, what was the criteria and thought process to come up with that? And what were you looking at? Because I've been with you when these things happen. And it's literally like a realtor calls and says, hey, Andrew, these are the checklists. It hits all the checks. And you just say yes. How did you get to be able to do that?
Well, my criteria has changed over the years. So earlier on, I was more like a lot of dentists in that I was looking for very specific areas, very specific demographics. But, the part of the reason why it's gotten a lot easier to find these startups and to open them and to open quicker is my criteria has changed from, hey, I want to get in this specific area, to this is a situation I'm looking for. And so my commercial broker knows that. Some practice brokers I work with know that. I am looking for old dental spaces. I'm looking for basically little to no patient base where I can just either for no money or very little money, maybe $100,000 at most, acquire the space. Maybe it comes with equipment. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe I have some renovations to do, but if I do, it's not a full build out. So it's not the full cost. And even more important is a timeline.
Yeah, not the full timeline.
Right. So most people, when they do a dental startup, if it's a ground up construction, I mean, it can literally be years. I'm saying like, I know a doc who's been working on his first startup for like 3 or 4 years now, because the first ground up construction deal never went through. And then the second one just kept getting delayed. So, I mean, like literally you can put your life on hold for 3, 4, 5 years trying to do a ground up construction. I will never do that again.
And there's a tremendous money, opportunity, timeline costs to that of like revenue. Like there is like that hold, even though you're not putting money out of your pocket, what you are doing is you're missing out on revenue.
Oh yeah. Even if you find an existing space and you're just doing a standard full build out, that can take 18 months, by the time you find the space, get a lease signed, get permitting, get the construction started. And unfortunately, not all contractors are great about being on time. I finally found one. It's been night and day. That has been the biggest blessing with these new startups I'm doing. I'm using the same guy for the 2 of the projects because there's only 2 in the area that I'm doing construction on. But he is doing them both simultaneously for me, and he has been right on time. Great communicator for everything. So finding an amazing contractor makes a huge difference for sure. But again, even if you have a great one, you're still at a pretty lengthy timeline for a full build out. So the saving the opportunity cost rather than it taking 18 months to maybe up to a couple of years for a traditional startup, my startups that I'm finding now are typically taking me 2 to 5 months from the time I find the space until I open my doors.
I've watched this last couple of years. I mean, the first time me and you ever met over Zoom, I was like, you're going to be awesome. And I was instantly, from a business point of view, enamored with your just vision and your drive. And we kind of like, honestly, except for you picked the wrong marketing company in the beginning, but you came around. And from that point forward, once we got together, we've been really tight. I've been watching you grow. And I feel like in the beginning, you were really looking for, like you said, like the right geographic scenarios. And there's a lot of demographic check boxes and that kind of stuff. I think that watching you progress, you've learned that if I can steal the space and I can get into it for less and get into it quicker, I can take that savings and apply it to marketing and create the market I need. Because the reality is every single person on this planet needs dentistry, and they're there and available. So in my opinion, you could spend $1 million on a giant, beautiful build out with marble floors and 10 operatories and all this craziness. Or you could steal a practice that the doc couldn't sell because he sucked and it was, 1990s practice, has some chairs, the implant startup, the first implant startup is this scenario. It had like shag carpeting inside it. And you renovated it, and that's a $2 million plus practice now, right? And the savings of time, savings of build out, you applied directly to marketing. You created your market. And the reality is, I don't, some people are going to argue this with me. I don't know if the geographic demographic stuff is as valuable as everyone puts it out to be in the industry. I think it's,
spoiler alert, it's not.
It's grossly overvalued. Like these demographic, like at Energize, we rarely ever run demographic reports. You can always, there's humans in the area that need dentistry. I believe there's a lot of humans that are fee for service in the marketplace, a lot of patients who aren't seeking dentistry properly and they come through marketing. And I believe you can create a market of higher value patients in that marketplace easily. So you have saved the build out cost, the time cost, and I think you've directly applied those savings to the marketing and created your own market.
Yeah, because right out the gate, man, with these 3 new practices, we're budgeting $15K per practice per month. So that's $45,000 in marketing the first month that these 3 practices are opening, without any revenue coming in from those practices yet. So I think you're absolutely right. Guys, there's a lot of people that have built dental groups. I think the only thing that I'm doing different than most, I'm doing it with startups faster than most, and I'm not using any private equity. So, in order to quickly grow a group of dental practices, one, you need to find things that are either an acquisition that you can just jump into right away, or you've got to find these quick start startups. And 2, you got to keep your costs down. Because even with a good track record and, a bank that you've built a good relationship with, they're still only going to be able to lend you so much money in a given year. And if you're out there trying to, one, just do a traditional startup, which nowadays, a traditional startup, you're looking at like $750,000.
Yeah, I was going to say like 800,000 is what I think. Yeah,
and
that's about
some
right.
of these practices
and that's only if you have 5 ops, it's building 3 ops out, not 2, not the other 2.
Maybe 4 or 5. I don't know. But anyways, it's not a huge practice. I mean, some of these startups I'm doing are 10, 11 operatories, 3,400 square feet. So for a fraction of the cost, I'm able to get in the practices a lot faster, and I'm able to do more of these for the same amount of lending as doing like 1 or 2 traditional startups. And then if you're acquiring a practice, again, unless you find a quote unquote dying practice with very little patients, but unfortunately, a lot of times those are like those 3-4 op practices, which unless you're doing like, especially like the dental implant offices, you're really limiting your growth in those offices too. So I think that's what I'm doing differently than most is I don't have to get private equity involved. I can still grow very quickly, but it is a lot of work to do these startups. So, don't get me wrong. I would never advise someone who hasn't already done a number, who doesn't have systems down pat, who doesn't have a leadership team in place. I would never advise you to do multiple startups at one time. I mean, guys, even for me doing number 5, 6, and 7 simultaneously with an operations officer and a fractional CFO and an executive assistant, and we hired office managers for these new practices well before they opened. So we had them training at our other offices. We had them seeing how things run. We had them attending leadership meetings with us, and we have them doing a lot of the steps to get the practices open. So, when you're a doc doing your first startup, it's you. I mean, you are at the practice waiting for deliveries, getting stuff set up with the IT team, ordering furniture, whatever it is. But, the benefit of having a larger dental group is that we could afford to hire these, high caliber team members early and basically delegate to them a lot of the steps they need to open. Now, I've got systems in place. I've got processes. I mean, they get, specific guidelines for how we want to do things to get them open. And there's a lot of copying and pasting that's going on. And some of it I'm still doing, our Flex, our automation with Flex. We basically use Flex to the maximum potential now. So we've got the automated reminder texts and emails, the automated confirmation texts and emails. We've got automated birthday emails that go out. We've got automated overdue for recall texts and emails that go out. We've got automated, you've got treatment that you haven't scheduled yet, texts that go out. So there's a lot of different things that we have to set up in our Flex so that everything runs properly. We have online scheduling through Flex. So I'm still setting up that stuff, but a lot of the other things that go into getting each practice open, like the actual things that are happening physically at the locations, our office managers are doing that before we even have the rest of the team at the office.
So I was thinking about we should have Flex on the show because I believe in Flex, and I have so many successful docs that use Flex. Like, I mean, I think all my super docs use Flex. That's something we should definitely have on the show. So, you're really doing these shell startups, right? And I think these are undervalued gems that are looked over in the marketplace. They're kind of looked at negatively, right? And it's like, oh, I think docs have a mentality of like, well, that location didn't work for them. Why would it work for me? Is what people think, right?
Yeah.
They have the psychology of like, and I think what there really needs to be the way you should look at these undervalued gems. And I mean, we did a whole episode about shell practices. I've believed in shell practices for years now. I think it's the best buy in the marketplace. Is wow, awesome! I found a location that someone who sucked had first, and now I can be the one to make it successful. Like the reality is, it's if you're the right doc in the right place, you can do well in dentistry, right? So it's like, and maybe the doc didn't suck. Maybe he was just later in life and got tired towards the end and didn't sell at the right time and made some poor choices, and and now he's just letting go of the property, right? And that's the way it is. Or he just decided to retire and walk away and couldn't sell it. But generally, I bet you that shell practice, if you look around it, there's a $2 million practice park somewhere nearby. So the market location is fine. I mean, your location for implant practice number one is not amazing. It was kind of hard for me to find it the one day. It's the furthest thing from an amazing location. Has no street frontage. Has no destination traffic. I had to find it. That overnight was a $2 million practice.
In that area aren't great either.
No, they're not. It's not great.
But it's the last couple of years, $2 million a year, basically on 3.5 doctor days a week out of 4 functional operatories with no hygiene. So I mean, like, it works.
If that was a 5-day a week practice, it'd be over $3 million.
Yeah,
all day long. So
I think what you're saying, Matt, which I totally agree with, I think you're saying that you see what you're looking for. A lot of people look for problems. So, when you're scouting out a deal, when you're scouting out a space, when you're scouting out a practice, you're looking for, and I notice this in the Facebook groups, when people post, a lot of times anonymous posters because, they don't want anyone to know what they're looking at or steal their deal or whatever. But a lot of these anonymous posters, oh, I saw this looks great, but I'm worried about this, or I'm concerned about this, or like I see sometimes it's like, oh, the seller moved across the street to a bigger building. Well, great. That, you know what? 2 of the 3 startups I'm doing right now that happened. Literally, the old dentist that was in the space is now across the street in a brand new building, and we're going into their old space. You know what that means? It's a great area for dentistry. They've grown their practice and they needed a bigger facility to expand to. But a lot of people see it as problems. Like, I don't want to go into, a space across the street. Like that old dentist is a staple there. I don't want to compete with them, whatever it is. But to me, like, that's an amazing opportunity. It's a very quick, very cheap startup for me in what is obviously a good demographic for dentistry because someone else was very successful there. Sometimes it's, oh, the space just is terrible. So like one of the startups I'm doing now was an old VA clinic. It looked like,
oh, really?
Oh yeah, an old VA dental clinic. So I mean, it looked like that. I worked in public health before. I know what public
very
health
sterile, very not nice.
Yeah, there was none of the upgraded features. It felt like a cold, government funded medical type office, and the utilization of space was horrible. It was like 7 operatories in a 3,200 square foot space where I'm thinking we could get 10 or 11 in here. And there's all this, kind of wasted space, wasted rooms. So, I think, and it had been sitting there for a while, and a lot of docs had looked at it and passed on it before I had looked at it, apparently. And I think they were thinking those exact thoughts, like, oh, this is not the practice I envision, blah, 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 whatever it was. And in my mind, I'm seeing this gem where I can just go in and literally sign a lease and do a partial build out in a couple months and have this huge dental practice. So that's exactly what I did. So guys, and this is true in anything, you're going to find what you're looking for. If you're looking for problems, you're going to find problems. If you're looking for opportunities, you're going to find opportunities. So
I think too, like going back to the scenario of like the doc shut the practice down and opened up across the street because he wanted to stay geographically relevant to his area, and docs go into that intimidated, right? I think part of it is having the confidence to bet on yourself, right? So, we sponsor a lot of the big Facebook groups, and I love Nifty 50. I love Don Nachos. Paul and Glenn, I think, are probably two of the most important voices in all of dentistry. And both of those groups have multiple marketing companies that sponsor them, right? I think some marketing agencies would go in and say, oh, you already have 5 sponsors. Why would I get involved in that? And my opinion is, if there's 5 sponsors in those groups and they're all still paying, that means there's a market there,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And
Yep.
and that's my opinion. And the companies I compete with in those groups are all companies I've tracked over the years and I respect, and they're ones I enjoy competing with because I like to compete with the best, right? And it's like, if you are opening up across the street, the doc left, he vacated the space, right? And he opened up across the street. Well, there's obviously a market there. And if you're a great doc, everyone needs dentistry, you're going to do well. I think what happens is humans are conditioned to hyper focus on the negative. It's a defense mechanism, right? So when we go look at a house, we look at a space, we look at anything large we're going to buy, we're looking for the problem. Is the foundation okay? Is the roof okay? Is there water damage? That kind of stuff. I think whenever you go look at anything, when we talk, you'll tell me, hey, look at a space, man. Let me tell you about this space. And your tone about it, you actually never bring up the problems you found. You never do. All the stuff you start with is, Matt, it's 3,200 square feet. Guess how many ops are? 6. That's it. Think about how badly that's the 10 op space. And you don't care that it's shag carpeting or that the doc moved across the street or that it was an old VA clinic. You just see the opportunity. I think that goes back to the plentiful mindset of like, look for the positive in the deal, not the negative. Don't hunt for the gremlins, hunt for the diamonds, right? Everyone's looking for the gremlin in the deal. Don't do that. Hunt for the diamonds. So moving on from there, we have 3 startups coming like real rapidly, and then there's one that coming a little bit later. So we have four in the oven being baked right now. 3 are almost done. What is the timeline of those 3 opening? And can you tell us the details of each of the 3 opening? And I have some questions about each one.
Yeah. So, again, the first one was an implant office. This was actually our first one that was outside of the general Tampa area. So this is down in Southeast Florida, kind of the Fort Lauderdale area. And this was, like I said, the last one we found this year. So we literally found this space in October. It was one of the ones where the dentist moved across the street, but they had renovated the space not that long ago. So it had been renovated within the last 10 years. It actually looked very nice for a vacated dental space. The equipment wasn't even that old. They wanted all new equipment to match for their new bigger space. So it was one of the easiest quote unquote startups. I mean, it is a startup because we have no patience. But it was the easiest startup ever because all we had to do was a little bit of IT build out. So we added a new server. They were kind of using a makeshift server. So we added some computers, added a server, added CBCT, got a Trios and a Sprint Ray, and added some signage. And that was, I mean, honestly, that was about it. There was almost nothing else we had to do to practice. So the longest period was just getting closed on the lease, and the equipment acquisition is what it was for the APA. So there's a couple things that held those up a little bit. Otherwise, it would have been even faster. Or like we could have been open by the end of November if we didn't have some delays, with that. But either way, just over 2 months from the time we found the space until we got open and started seeing patients. Obviously, with a short timeline like that, you've got to move very quickly. So as CEO of like a growing dental group, you're basically playing project manager for these new startups. So And there's kind of like sub managers under you. So like my operations officer, the office managers, like they're kind of the sub project managers. But like I'm there looking at the 10,000 foot view of everything, how all the different times are going to line up, and making sure that we're going to have what we need to have by the time we open our doors. And despite your best efforts, things don't work out perfectly. There was some delays with the Sprint Ray and Trios, which unfortunately weren't communicated very well with myself or my team. So they weren't there when we thought they were going to be there to start training. And so we had to kind of do some stuff to work around it. But for the most part, it's like literally we have a spreadsheet with like all of the different aspects of opening the door to the startup. And like, have we done this yet? Like from switching utilities, if you're credentialing insurance, which we're not the implant, but the other offices we are, like credentialing insurances, IT build out, equipment installation. If you're doing construction, construction done, supplies ordered, whatever it is. And so we've got this like shared Google sheet that the office manager, operations officer, myself are on, my executive assistant, so that we can all kind of check it, edit it, we can have calls or meetings about what still needs to be done to make sure that we're hitting those targets. So again, I tell my operations officer, I tell my OMs, whenever you open a brand new practice, things are never going to be perfect. And even though I have done this multiple times now, even though I've got a recipe, even though there's a lot of copying and pasting that's going on, which does, I was thinking about it the other day as I was ordering supply. The first time I ordered supplies for a startup, it literally was like a full week thing because I was I was researching different equipment or different like dental supplies I'd used before. I was researching supplies that I saw in groups. I was comparing and contrasting. I was checking different sites and different angles to see where I could get the best bang for my buck. I was trying to figure out how much I need to order at the beginning. It literally took me like a full week project to get that initial order done. While I did that order, I made a master spreadsheet. So this is back in 2021. Well, yeah, end of 2020, beginning of 2021, as I was prepping to open my first startup. So I did it a couple months in advance and ordered everything early and had boxes stacked up in my house. Over the years, we've continued to modify and edit this spreadsheet, but it's still the same basic original initial supply order spreadsheet that I had before. And this time, think about it, I got to order supplies for 3 off. This is one thing I did not delegate to the OMs because it's just something that I feel like I have gotten down so pat, and it's going to be faster for me to make sure that everything's ordered that needs to be for these offices. And I make some small tweaks between the general and the implant offices, even though they're all on the same spreadsheet. But when I go to order for these 3 offices, it's not taking me a full week for each office. It's not taking me a full day. It's literally a couple of hours now where I log into my Dentira, Net32. Those are the main sites we're using. Net32 for the less important disposables and Dentira for a lot of the other supplies. And I'm just going down this spreadsheet line by line, typing it, like literally copying and pasting like a product code, putting in my basket, moving on to the next thing. So like I'm ordering, like 300 or whatever it is, different supplies and, small equipment and whatnot to get the practice started. And I'm doing what used to take a week in a couple of hours. So there definitely is, some advantages once you've done something before, once you've kind of learned. But it also goes back to the importance of, creating systems, creating spreadsheets, creating lists. Because if I didn't do that the first time, and I didn't do it like every single time I did it, yeah, it would probably be faster because I'd have a better idea of what I wanted to order and whatnot. But like still, like you've got to take the time to actually create written systems, or your life's not going to get easier as you move through your career.
In the military, as I hear you like talk about this, right? There's 2 concepts that kind of come up. One is asymmetric warfare, which is the concept of like doing way more impact with way less as far as supplies, materials, technology. And the analogy that was used with us when explaining asymmetric warfare, which is really terrorist warfare or guerrilla warfare, is like the U.S. builds a giant terrorist hunting robot that's $1 billion and has all these sensors on it. And how do you neutralize it? Like cannons, guns, what? You give a little kid a spray can, let him up a spray pan over the sensors. Now it's neutralized, right? Because it's designed to not hurt regular people, right? Like you're taking this stuff and you're doing a whole lot with a lot less and getting way more impact. And the other one that comes to mind is the concept of a force multiplier, which is you're utilizing these other people and these processes to multiply the impact of the individuals on the process and you're being more efficient with the physical items and you're being more efficient with the human part of the whole process by doing this. And I think that like what happens is a doc is like, hey, I'm going to do startup number 2. And in their head, they're like, I got to do everything I did for startup number 1 again, all over again. Well, if you're smart about it, when you do startup number 2, it should be 25% more efficient when you do it. And when you do number 3, it should be 50% more efficient.
Yeah.
Now you're at number 9 and you're I think you're probably 70% more efficient or more at doing a startup now than you were in the beginning, because every time you did it, like, all right, I'm not going through that nightmare I did before. So how do I make the nightmare more digestible? I think that's the only way you do 3 startups simultaneously. Because if you had to do all 3 of these startups the way you did startup 1, how horrific would that be?
Yeah, no, it was absolutely less work, less effort to do these 3 startups than it was to do just the first one. But the difference is the first one, I spread the work out over like 8 months. And these 3, the work got condensed over the bulk of it, honestly, over like the last 6 weeks, because until there was a lot of things that I didn't want to or couldn't do until we got closer to actually opening.
So it was 24 months worth of work in 3 weeks or 6 weeks. Think about that.
Yeah, I guess
if you took 8 months to do startup one, we're doing 3 now. We did it 3 in 6 weeks.
But once again, better efficiencies and more help. So I had a lot more help and I had more efficient systems. But yes, it was the actual amount of hours I spent getting those 3 startups open was less than the hours I spent for the first startup, for sure, 100%. So you've got to learn, you've got to adapt, you've got to improve, you've got to become more efficient. Now, let's talk a little more about timelines. So this office, again, there was no construction, but we had to wait till we signed the lease and the APA in order to get into the space. And that stuff didn't get signed until the week after Thanksgiving. So, I mean, we are like literally at the beginning of December. And that's when my team could get in to install the CBCT. That's when they could get in to install the server and the computers and all that stuff. So by the time the computers were installed and Open Dental was set up and Flex was set up and all that stuff, and I got remote access via TeamViewer, again, keep in mind, this is in Fort Lauderdale, like 4 hours from me. So this office is open. This office has seen, I don't know how many patients they've seen this first week, but they've seen, double-digit patients already. I've never been to this building. I've never seen it in person.
You've never been there?
I've never been there. Nope. Never been there. And I'm sure at some point I'll get down there. We're looking at possibly opening another practice or 2 over the next.
Now, is this a dental boutique or is this a Great Value?
This is a Best Value implant office.
Best Value. Sorry, Best Value.
Yep. So anyways, I've never been there. Everything I'm doing for the office is remote. I am remoted into all of my different offices. So I work from home now, although we are looking for a space for kind of our executive team. So I'm looking at small commercial spaces for like an actual office space. But I work from home. Everything I'm doing is remote via TeamViewer. I got access about a week and a half before our first patients were supposed to be scheduled, or before opening day. And so basically, as soon as I got access, that's when we started scheduling patients. So we launched our marketing, our first wave of marketing, like 2 weeks before opening day, and we got access to the computers and schedule about a week and a half. So there was a couple days where marketing was live, and we didn't have anywhere to really schedule patients. But in that short span, that week and a half, we were able to. Again, I don't know the final number, but I want to say somewhere in the ballpark of maybe like 20 patients got scheduled that first week. So, and this isn't just general patients. These are people looking for, dental implants. That's not bad for a week and a half's work, especially around the holidays. I mean, for those of you listening that are working on marketing right now, it's a tough time to market, because unless patients are wanting to use their end of the year insurance benefits, which often they have their own dentist already if they have, dental insurance. But unless they're trying to get in to use their end of the year insurance benefits, most people don't really want to go to the dentist and spend money right before Christmas.
Yeah. This Q4 was especially hard because the election and then the holidays right afterwards.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. The two, it was a double whammy.
Yep. So that's about the timing. Ideally, I would like to normally start our marketing in the 2 to 3 week time frame before the office opens. But again, we get very aggressive. So it's like marketing launches and it's like, boom, we're all of a sudden spending big dollars trying to get people in the door. If you're going to be more timid with your marketing, you may want to start earlier. But again, I always talk to startup docs who are struggling, and often will find they're spending $500 a month on marketing, $1,000 a month on marketing. Maybe they're just running some Google ads. Maybe they're just doing some mailers. Guys, when you're a startup, and we've talked about this before, but like the way that I've been able to grow this group, the way I'm able to, open 3 startups simultaneously, is I will invest heavily in marketing. We'll do different types of marketing. We'll do a lot of mostly social media, a lot of Facebook, a lot of Instagram. We'll do a good bit of Google ads, and I'll do a little bit of mailers here and there. But if you want to grow a startup practice quickly, you've got to spend money on marketing, or it's just not going to happen. So anyways, that office opened on Monday. They did close their first implant treatment that day. My text message to the office manager that morning, again, I've never been there. I did meet her. She actually came up to train with our other team in Tampa, so I did meet her in person. But my text to her was, hey, congrats on opening day. Don't worry, everything's not going to be perfect, and that's okay. So, we just have to get open, and provide an amazing patient experience, and everything else is going to take care of itself. So like, that's my mentality. Again, guys, done is better than perfect. If you try to make everything 100% perfect, first of all, it's never going to happen, but you're just going to stall things, delay things, stress yourself out. Patients don't know exactly what's supposed to happen. So it's like if you go see a play that you've never seen before, you don't know the lines, you don't know like what's supposed to happen. So same thing with our team. If there's something that's not 100% ready, if we drop the ball somewhere, patients typically don't even know that happened. We have to train our teams to stay positive, to not get frazzled, to not get stressed out, to keep a smile on their face and keep providing that great patient experience, and it's not going to matter. So
that's location 2, or that was
yes.
location 1.
Well,
So
that was startup number 5, which was the first of this set of 3.
okay.
So startup number 6, which is the second of the 3, is opening exactly a week after that one, which will be this coming Monday. So in a few days here. That practice is in the general Tampa area. It's in a different market. It's the Pinellas market. So those familiar with Tampa, it's kind of the area closer to the beaches, Clearwater, St. Pete, that type of area. That's a dental boutique office. That one, we're starting with 5 ops equipped and a massage chair in a 6th room. And then at some point, most likely next year, we're going to do a little bit of additional construction where we're going to expand and better utilize the space. And eventually that practice is going to be 10 operatories. So we're going to put 4 more in there. That practice, kind of a similar deal. So we did have construction. That was the first one I found this year. So that one we actually found, let's say maybe it was like late June, early July. So it was probably 5 to 6 months a timeline. That one took a little bit longer to get the lease signed. There's a little bit more construction to do. So by the time we actually got the lease signed, I don't think we got that lease signed until the end of September. And then we had some hurricanes. So that might have been part of it too. But still, contractor started working, I think, sometime in October. Got everything done exactly on time. I bought him a nice bottle of bourbon for Christmas because he did so awesome with both these projects. And it's just kind of coordinating, finishing construction, making sure the Banco team is ready to go with their install date for their equipment. This one that didn't come with anything. So we had to put dental chairs, the whole 9 yards, making sure IT companies ready to come out, install all the computers, the server, the TV. This was a full IT build out. And then again, about a week and a half, I don't know why it just kind of seems to line up that way. About a week and a half before opening day, I got access to computers in the office. I got the open dental schedule set up. And guys, some words of advice if you're doing a startup: set up your schedule intentionally with blockouts from day one, because and set it up for like the next year or two. Because if you only set up a short period and then you're trying to go in and you've got patients scheduled, things are a mess. It's going to take you 10 times as long to create the blocks and set the schedule. So basically what I do from day one in my general practices, I set up, we do assisted hygiene when we first open. So it's 2 operatories go to hygienist. We stagger 90-minute new patient blocks. And then off to the side, we've got production blocks for the doctor. We've got blockouts for emergencies / consults. And then, we plan that at the 6-month mark, we're going to add a second hygienist and we'll add a 3rd column of hygiene. And then those 2 hygienists will kind of split 3 columns of hygiene. So anyways, if anyone's interested and you want to see like a screenshot of what that looks like, feel free to shoot me an email. It's docvallodds@gmail.com, and I can send you guys a screenshot of what our block schedule looks like. But basically, I spend maybe a half hour and I create the schedule for like the next 18 months or 2 years or whatever it is. Because once you have it set, you can just copy, paste, that type of a thing. So we use a call center. We use Golden Goose. So we got them into the computers. We use laptops for our remote computers. So rather than installing a bunch of extra expensive laptops, which you don't really need for 99% of the remote work, we buy affordable laptops for a couple $100 at most, like usually under $200. And we'll have like a bay of like 6 laptops. And it's like one is specifically for me, or I think we do 2 for the call center. We do a couple for our insurance outsourcing companies and stuff like that. So we've got like this bay of remote laptops that are in the office that people can remote into outside. So we got the call center onboarded. We got marketing live. We're doing marketing in a couple different stages for this office. So Google ads went live first. Those went live right around the time that the computers went live. And then right after that, I started launching some some Instagram ads for new patients for like free whitening, some Instagram ads for veneers and Invisalign. And then we're going to actually launch some Facebook ads directed towards implants right at the beginning of the new year. So we're kind of phasing it out with the holidays. We didn't want to launch everything all at once because we're only open, a handful of select days around the holidays. So
That's practice number 6, number 2 in this series. We
Yes.
started in June.
Yep.
Little
June,
longer
July,
build up.
something like that. Yep.
And real quick,
5-6 months.
the laptops, the Bay laptops, because some docs who don't run multi-location may not understand what that really meant. So I think what Andrew's saying is inside that building, somewhere there's a stack or a thing of 6 laptops, and each laptop is a dedicated unit that someone can remote in who works remotely for that practice. So like if the call center has to remote in, rather than Andrew, the call center, trying to remote into the same computer and causing a traffic jam, the call center is a dedicated cheap laptop that they can remote into. Probably Manny, as operations officer, has his own. Andrew has his own. So let's say there's 10 people need to remote into that system. Andrew spends $2,000 on total of 10 dedicated laptops to prevent traffic jams and issues. So everyone has their own dedicated computer to go into.
It's usually closer to 6, and it's like I said, like $200 or less per laptop. So we're talking maybe a little bit over $1,000, less than you'd spend on one nice desktop computer. Because we used to literally, at first we didn't even have laptops, and we had people fighting over actual computers, like we had like an overflow op computer that was being used, and it was just causing all these issues. So then we got a laptop, and we're like, you know what? These laptops are cheap and they work great. Let's get more laptops so that way people aren't trying to fight over remoting in the same thing. So yes, that is probably some of the best money. If you do a lot of outsourcing. Oh, and we have a virtual assistant for my flagship practice that remotes into her own laptop. So if you are into outsourcing, you've got virtual assistants, you've got insurance outsourcing that you use, which I highly recommend. And honestly, I'm to the point now where unless you've got a big group, and at some point we may take some stuff in-house for insurance, but like I evaluated again this year, guys, and it just doesn't make sense for what we'd spend to create our own in-house insurance team, at least not right now. And same with the call center. I don't think we'll ever make our own call center. I've looked into it, the amount of work and costs that goes to building your own call center. Golden Goose has been great. Yes, we could save a little bit of money in the long run, especially as our group continues to grow. Maybe if the group gets big enough, it would make sense. But like, guys, there's a reason that these companies exist. I highly recommend. Phone is the most important piece of technology in your office, and most of you are not answering it enough because a lot of offices don't answer it when they're not there, or even when they are there, it's not being answered because people are just too busy. So even if you don't want to outsource existing patients to the call center, we try to answer all existing patient phone calls during office hours. But during non-office hours, they get sent to the call center. During office hours, we don't pick up, they go to the call center. All new patients all the time for all of my offices, even before they open, are always directed to the call center, who has a very high answer rate and who has a very high conversion rate, because they're not doing any other tasks. They're not focusing on patients that are in the office. They are focusing only on that person on the phone call, and they are incentivized to book appointments, and they're trained well, like with principles persuasion. So highly, highly recommend at least your new patients outsourced to a call center. I guarantee you're missing new patients scheduling if you're trying to do everything in your office.
So this was a long episode, obviously a big subject. So that was number 2, which is number 6.
Third one, and yeah, we can wrap up here soon.
Yeah, let's do the third one. Just tell us after the third one. Just tell us how far out the fourth one is.
Yeah, so third one is opening exactly 3 weeks from the first of this series. That one is another dental boutique. That's another part of Tampa. So that's north west area of Tampa, kind of Trinity, Newport, Richie area for those familiar. So that one, very, very similar. That was actually the VA space. So again, I want to say we found that space maybe in August. So we were already kind of working on plans for the Largo dental boutique office, and we found that space. Actually, I'm trying to think how I found that space. I think someone from Henry Schein like sent me an email or something like that. But I found that space. Originally, they were trying to sell the space, but there was no patients and there was no dental equipment. So I basically told the Henry Schein guy, and like, I don't know what you think you're selling here, but like, no one's going to buy this. And it was like an absurd amount too. And like the guy, didn't. But anyways, eventually I was able to work just directly with the landlord was trying to sell the building. He decided to keep the building and just rent the space to me, and didn't end up selling it to me or anything like that. So again, guys, most people see that, and honestly, originally I saw it and I'm like, wait, 250,000 and there's no patients, no equipment. Like that's a terrible deal. I would never take that. But I was like, you know what? It's worth looking at. And I'm sure glad I did. Because again, 4 months from the time we found that space, we are opening that office and we're starting again with 5 ops and a massage chair. We're expanding it to, I believe that one's going to be 11 ops when all's said and done.
You're adding like 31 ops across these 3 locations. Am I right?
No, the implant offices are smaller. So the implant office only has 4 ops, which is all we really need. Yeah, we need
10.
about four to 5 ops there. So we're adding like 25 ops from these 3 practices. So that one we don't have. They're finishing up last bits of construction, but they're pretty much done. I believe they actually installed the equipment yesterday. I guess I got to double check on that, make sure that happened. IT, they are already out there, but they don't have me the computers live yet. But as soon as computers get live, so basically I'm just like going on these cycles where like I get access to one office, I get open dental schedule set up, I get flex set up, I get swell set up. I get everything ready to rock and roll right around the time we launch marketing, and right off the bat we start scheduling patients. So that office has no patients scheduled so far, but very quickly we'll get some scheduled. That second office that we literally just got access less than a week ago, we've already essentially filled the entire first day of new patients, and we've got a number scheduled on the next couple days that they're open. So if you are aggressive with your marketing, you do the right type of marketing, you leverage social media marketing, you do things that will really attract people, like give away free teeth whitening, you can very quickly start to fill the schedules of these new startup practices. So
those are the 3 in this series, and it's 5, 6, and 7.
Yeah,
number 8 is scheduled.
A 4th on the horizon. So there's still some legwork that needs to be done, but it would be another very quick start transition type of a thing. That one's also in South Florida. If things go according to plan and we are able to kind of put the bow on this deal that we're working on with that one could potentially open as soon as like late January. So it may not be far, about a month behind these other ones, but you'll learn with these deals, guys. Not all, I've had other ones that I had thought I was close. LOIs were signed, things like that. And then all of a sudden the deal didn't happen. So that's the other thing. You've got to be looking for opportunities. You've got to be ready to jump on opportunities when they present themselves and they're good opportunities. But at the same time, you can't get hung up if one doesn't work. So while that one is still not a done deal, it's close, but there's still a few things we got to get through to make sure that it definitely goes through. But while that one is still kind of hanging there, I've already got the next deal that I'm looking at, and that's a potential fallback if this one doesn't work. And even if this one does, that might be one we take on in 2025. So that's one of my main roles now as CEO of my group is contributing and catalyzing the growth. And I am always networking. I'm always talking with brokers and friends and trying to find these spaces. And anytime a space looks like it could, again, even if everything doesn't look perfect, on the surface, I'm going to at least get some more details about it. Now, it's getting harder because we're starting to expand outside the Tampa area. So a lot of these new practices I'm starting to look at aren't a close drive. And I don't have time to make a 2-hour, 3-hour, 4-hour drive somewhere to check out a practice that may or may not be a good fit. So that's where you've got to leverage some of the relationships you have, like my IT companies in South Florida. So they've actually been the first feet on the ground for these new practices that we're checking out. They're basically going to check them out for us, giving us some insight, letting us know what the IT situation looks like. Benco, they'll send texts down to those, especially if there's equipment, they'll send texts down to take a look and let us know. We'll get some videos either from those people or from the broker or, whoever. So again, a lot of these deals that I'm looking at doing, I'm not even going to see in person. And typically I'm not going to see the practice before it even opens. So
we need to wrap this up. This is a long episode, but I know one thing that I want to highlight, like Andrew lets everyone know what Andrew's doing. Like there's a thing in dentistry of like, oh, I can't tell anybody. It's a secret. I got to do it. Like no one can know. And Andrew, like the Henry Schein rep brought you the one location, right? I'm sure at some point the Henry Schein rep knew Andrew looks for that. Andrew's like, hey man, if you ever see this, you call me first, right? And I don't think Andrew hides what his intentions are. And Andrew's very transparent. If you guys have seen Facebook posts from him, he shares screenshots from Open Dental. You know, there is a point of like you're going to do what you're going to do, and if you really believe in yourself, who cares if anyone else knows? Because 80% of the population's too scared to try to do what you're doing anyway.
Yep.
Right. So it's like, so I know Andrew, his mentality when he meets dental professionals, he's like, hey man, just do me a favor. If you ever see these conditions, you see a practice where the doc retired, it's sitting there, there's no patients, can you just give me a call? Cause I'll look at it. Right. And the Henry Schein knew it and you weren't scared to say it. Well, there is something to that.
I'm trying to show other dentists what's possible because I do feel like, again, one of the biggest things we're trying to combat on our podcast is scarcity mindset. And unfortunately, it still is an epidemic in the dental community. A lot of docs are fearful of what could go wrong. They're looking for problems. And I just want to let you guys know, like, if you've got to work hard. Sometimes there's some luck involved. Sometimes you learn things the hard way. But if you take chances, you work hard, you manifest things, like anything is possible. Guys, if I can open 7, maybe 8 startups in less than 4 years, like you can open a startup. So if you're sitting there and you're just like, man, I just don't know if I have what it takes. I don't know if I can do it. What if it fails? What if it's, again, you're looking for the wrong thing. You're looking for the problems instead of trying to look for the opportunity. And instead, like your mindset should be like, what if I do this? What if it succeeds? Like, what if it works? Like how much different can my life be?
Worry about what if it is amazing, not what if it fails.
Yeah, no, seriously. Because it's like so cliche, but like they always say when you're on your deathbed, the things you regret are the things that you didn't try in life. It's not the things that you did. So it's like, guys, like you don't want to be sitting there 20 years from now wondering like, what if I had taken that chance? What if I had, tried that startup or try to buy that practice or whatever it is. Now, again, ownership's not for everybody. And if that's not something that you want,
there's nothing wrong with that.
That's totally fine.
Yeah.
I have my full-time associate docs in 2024 will all earn between somewhere around like $320,000 to $760,000 this year. And that's all of them are on 4-day weeks. Implant docs are really more like 3.5, some of them, but you can be an extremely successful associate doc with little to no, management stress, HR stress, any of that stuff, and really enjoy your life. And if that's what you want, that's totally fine. But if you think that you want to be a business owner, don't let fear hold you back from doing it. So that's it, guys.
Let's wrap this up.
We'll update you guys on how things go, sometime over the next few months here. Thanks for listening. I hope you got some pearls out of this. And as always, if you have questions, feel free to shoot me an email. Keep in mind, I am opening 3 startups right now, but I will do my best to get back to you and answer questions as well as I can, as quickly as I reasonably can. It's docvallodds@gmail.com. As always, guys, we appreciate you listening. No sponsors, there's no pay for me and Matt for doing this. We do it because we enjoy talking to you. We want to spread abundance mindset. We want to spread positivity, and we want to, share some of the great pearls that we've learned over the years, as far as the business of dentistry goes. So if you are enjoying it, please take a moment, leave us a review, share the podcast with friends, and we look forward to talking to you guys again soon.
Hey guys, thank you for joining us. Another great episode. Please, like Andrew said, like, subscribe, share. Have a great day.